No, he is. Sorry.
I like the office.
All things.
You follow that road around.
Yeah. We're 2 houses now.
All right, y'all. Hey, thanks for coming out in the awesome weather. Really appreciate it. Everybody here, administrators, fun guests that we have to speak to us. I appreciate that. So tonight we're starting off with the hearing on the school calendar. I'm going to open the meeting just what looks to be about 1 minute early. And so we'll start with roll call.
Okay. Brian.
Here.
Deb. Here. John.
Here.
Kim and Tyler.
Here.
All right, and so we have the school calendar that was proposed. It was in the board packet. This is technically the open meeting here. We probably should wait exactly until at least 6 o'clock before we wrap this up, but I don't see anybody here to discuss it unless we have like people who've come for 2 reasons. Strong feelings about this. I will ask on behalf of one patron. One patron said, hey, we start on Friday. That's a little weird. And I just said, yep. Not even that I agreed that it was weird. I just said I received your feedback. I can't recall. Is that normal? Is there a reason for it? I mean, I'm assuming it's so we just get all of our days in the right way and we have, some leftover time at the end, but.
We cannot start before the 23rd.
Okay.
And that's just the state mandate, so that's why we put it that way.
Perfect. That makes perfect sense.
And then your reasoning for all the days to line up, it's nice to have 1 extra day.
Yeah.
It's not.
Well, and that 1 day an ease for the kids too.
Yeah.
That's true.
It's a
Break
little
in.
hard for a 5-day week.
Give a little, it's kind of that.
We need more weeks like that week.
Brian,
I think it
we've
is
had-
good, Gary, that that's a state mandate, so it's got a problem with it. It's not here, it's down in Des
Yeah.
Moines.
Yeah.
Right?
This patron wasn't even like frustrated. They're just like,
Yeah.
hey, what?
Yeah.
This is
Yeah.
interesting. So
That
this is
was-
good to know.
Well, that was a big debate, what, 3 years ago, 2 years ago?
That's
When
about
it came in along?
And it sounds like they're kind of talking about it again, maybe.
To
That just
unroll
aligning it to the state fair, that instead, because we know that
That's what it is.
that was what it is. So instead of putting this this date of the 23rd, they're talking that after the state fair. But who knows if that'll come to fruition now, but.
Make more sense.
The state
Good to
fair
know.
is the same.
I had somebody ask a question as well, but it wasn't really so much with the start and stop, but just asked that, do we have any snow days built in? And I said,
We tack them onto the end.
to the end. So any day that we have off is automatically tacked on. I saw that a few of them were trying to do like some kind of a calculator to figure out what school it's at, but there's nothing baked in for that.
Is there any other discussion from the board on this one? Nobody from the public showed up. All right, do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
All right, we are adjourned out of the public hearing on the school calendar and into our regular meeting. Do we need to do another roll call?
Yeah, just in case.
All right, anyone leave yet? Okay, let's do it.
We'll do this again.
39 minutes.
Okay, Brian,
Here.
Tyler,
Here.
Kim, John,
Here.
Deb, all present, yeah.
Thank you. No worries. She's got it now. And I need a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved.
Second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
All right, thank you. Stands approved. We're going to open the, again, I'm just going to look. There's no one here for the public forum, so Travis, you prepared some awesome stuff. And thank you for giving it to us ahead of time in the board packet. That's
Yeah, that was a tall ask. I'm usually a last minute guy. So.
You outdid yourself.
Yeah. That
No, it was really nice to have some time to look through it all. Thank you.
Appreciate it.
I try. That's always my goal. But execution depending on your.
Thank you.
I'm sure it's the same thing. I didn't change it.
Yeah.
Thank you. It's a little bigger than maybe what you have. So I'll try to keep this pretty brief. I know you guys have a 40-minute goal, so if I take 35, that's probably be okay, right?
You have a farther drive than we do, right?
Any minute I take just comes off Sam's.
Over that next sector.
Yeah, that's fine. That just means they can't ask. They just can't ask questions. Should be really pretty brief here. What I put together was your debt profile, looked at your comprehensive financial planning, so kind of looking at tax rate forecast, and then just looked real quick on future capital financing. And I tried to give high level, not a bunch of numbers on a page, so hopefully that was helpful. So, so just going through the debt profile real quick, I'm just going to hit a couple highlights. So if you go to the valuation history, taxable valuation growth this year at 7.21%. So actually just a little bit lower than your historical average, but still obviously very, very strong growth. That's the taxable column. The actual valuation to the left was up 5.33%. So why the difference there? So what you're seeing is the effect of rollback. So in your case, some of your multi-residential housing being transitioned down, and that'll continue to transition down until it reaches the same level of residential rollback. Slight adjustment on the residential rollback rates, but still fairly good shape there. Off to the right then picks up the revenues generated by three of your major capital sides. So the 405 debt service levy, the $1.34 PEPL, and then the 33-cent board PEPL. So just so kind of for reference, it's a little bit astronomical to go back to 2003 and kind of look at the growth in those levies and what the growth in your tax base has allowed you guys to be able to afford as you kind of move forward with capital planning. Especially on the PEPL, that's just kind of crazy. So by class of property, again, not a lot to hit there in terms of changes. Still very strong growth throughout your formula. The one thing I will note is you guys currently do not have anything on tax increment financing. As a district, nothing within your area falls under tax increment financing. I know there's some talk about potential new developments that could have that component. So just be aware that will still increase valuation with respect to debt service and PEPL, but on your general fund, it will not give the same support. But it doesn't mean that you lose any dollars for educating kids because you're per pupil funding, but it will change your mix just a little bit if there were a big shift. Now, granted, that the thing that I would say from a school district standpoint is you're looking at it, if you're starting to hear talk, at the city level on developments, school districts prefer TIF or tax increment financing over abatements because abatements don't hit the tax rolls anywhere. So not that you have a say on which route the city goes, but to the extent that you're communicating with them, know if they roll an abatement and it lands 50 new houses, if you're stuck without any property taxes for 3 years on those houses, but get the kids, that sets back your capital financing. So I don't want to say case in point, but there's other few districts, not directly in the metro, but surrounding the metro that are playing catch up now because of those set of facts. Large residential abatements, taxable valuation hasn't come, but the kids are there, so they're trying to figure out, because if you go back one slide, their 405 valuation now is not picking up and growing because the valuation is not there. It's kind of hidden or baked in. So abatement of property doesn't fit anywhere on this. It's just kind of under the radar on the tax rolls of the county.
So it's as if the residents weren't built or if they weren't increasing, right?
Yeah, it's a better deal from the school district standpoint is if they paid the taxes and the city used the tax increment financing to intercept those taxes and send them back because you still have pieces of your taxes that are protected. Debt service, PEPL, and ISL, or your instructional support.
That's informative, thank you.
Yep. So general or tax rates, no, not a lot to hit here. Obviously there's the thing that I'll probably, obviously if you look at your tax rate history, you were at 1980 for a few years back in 2010, so your 10-year history at the bottom kind of hit 1790 when you couldn't access cash reserve, back up in the 1890 range, and you'll see that I think you've got some ability to lower that tax rate over the next 5 years. Take a deep breath, because look at the top at what the patrons or a resident of the city of Gilbert is actually seeing. 2010 tax rate, 3708. Today, 3676. Even over that period of time, really not a huge fluctuation. So, you know, your fluctuations on tax rate, you know, they have an impact, but you've had a lot of stability for the residents that live within the city. Now, people who don't live within the city don't pay the city taxes. You know, they've just seen really the Gilbert tax and the county community college and the other county taxes. So not a lot to add there. Your general obligation summary. So this is after your new debt has been issued. You're at 405 here in 19. Going into next year, 2020, your current fiscal year budget, the required levy is 375, and moving forward, your rate at 360. So that's the minimum requirement that you would have. So what's changed since the time you voted? You know, it's that year of valuation growth, and we did not push assumptions on this last bond issue. You know, we targeted an amount that looked affordable, made the decision to not push rates, not push valuation growth, knowing that that next project looms out there. You know, that was all strategic. So that's not a big surprise, other than there's probably a little bit more capacity because of the repeated, you know, you had 2 years of very significant taxable valuation growth as a district. So that's what's outstanding. You got debt out through 2038 as it stands now. So levy capacity available. Now this is a new chart. You guys haven't seen it in this format before.
I'm really proud of you to do this, though.
You like that?
Yeah, it's more than 2%. It's the first time I've ever seen you.
Oh, come on! That's not fair. I've been using 3. I even gave you a 5 before. I know I've done more than 2. So valuation growth, the left side is if 3% growth repeats, you can see your surplus levy. If 5% growth repeats, surplus levy. Surplus levy, I'm taking you out to 2038. Obviously, if you keep levying 405, you'd have paid off your debt ahead of time. So that's just a ballpark that kind of drives the numbers you're going to see later, but I wanted to give you this so you can just see. Now, what will actually happen, you know, you're going to run probably 5% for quite a while. When you get to 800 million of taxable valuation, it's going to become harder and harder to repeat 5% growth. Yep. You know, it's just going to be a function of how fast can you build those houses. 5% growth when you get out to 2029, you know, that equates to another $45 million of taxable valuation growth, which is not a taxable valuation growth you guys really had in the past. So, you know, I start looking at some of the raw numbers when you get out a little further. Not that it's not repeatable, but given that you don't have really a commercial base that can help drive that, to do it all on the back of housing is probably going to be fairly difficult. Now, not that it can't be done, but so I don't have any problems in looking at the 5-year model. As when you look later, when I'm talking about 5 years of 5% growth, doesn't bother me. When you start talking 20 years of 5% growth, I just would add the caution of can you repeat, you know, $45 million of taxable valuation growth, you know, 10 years from now. And it's likely that you'll have a few years of that, but you know, the waterfall effect, you'll have a year that's down. And so, you know, I think using a conservative number is good, but I think both of those are realistic scenarios.
Can I ask a quick question? Given like the difficulty to sustain the percent as the number gets bigger, right? Like, yep. Why do you use percentage growth here as opposed to like a strict dollar thing? Is that because each property does, regardless of being changed, go up to some percent? Okay. Yeah,
you will see some appreciation on your existing value. So you can look into more complicated valuation models where you say, you know, let's take our base and go 3% and then look at what type of growth. Yep. You know, this year we're going to add, you know, 10 homes at 250,000 and 5 homes at 300,000 and throw those onto the tax roll. So you can go more complicated, big picture math. This is going to get you close enough.
Okay, so thank you.
Yep. So outstanding sales tax debt. You're starting to generate a little bit of capacity here as the revenue per pupil has increased. Now that being said, you've been using some of that for ongoing needs and setting that aside for upfront capital. Total P&I or principal and interest payments at $940,000 per year versus your revenues at about 1.56. Once you get into 2020 and beyond, about $620,000 of surplus annually. And that's without increasing revenue per pupil growth. So I'm just trying to give you a static what's available.
I mean, you don't increase our
No,
attendance or our.
No, I'm just
Okay.
giving you a static here on what's available. Because if we were looking at, what could be available in 5 years to spend, I'm probably not wanting to push those assumptions because some of the statewide penny talk does include carving out some money for property tax equity relief. So long story short, if you saw 2% revenue per pupil growth in the state, one of the bills, or the bill that's really being pushed right now, there's about 2% of the state sales tax that goes into a property tax equity relief fund, 2.1%. And that would increase 1% each year. So if there's 2% growth, 1% of the growth goes to property tax equity relief that will flow through the school foundation formulas, and then 1% goes to statewide sales tax. So until that is settled, I'm going to hold off updating those, but then once those are done, we'll look at what kind of growth models can you expect on that front. Gail does have in her 5-year model the ability to forecast growth and stuff, so we've done that on another sheet. It's just not in this model. Go ahead, Tony.
That legislation change what's already there, or would that be impacting with the extended sales tax?
No, so it impact right away, but it's important to note that 1% would not carve back.
Right,
so
okay.
if there's 0% growth, you don't add 1% to the equity relief and lose it. So that's kind of how
we bonded and everything couldn't be compromised, but it just may not grow.
Yeah, at the same rate, but
yeah.
Their models are assuming 2.5% growth, so they see a pretty good amount of growth still at the state level looking at those. Okay, debt limit, 3% valuation growth, again, because this is the side that, will be more assessment oriented. So I backed off on that just because you've had a couple years closer to 5. And this is just more being conservative. When you get out to 2025, if you follow that line across, the remaining debt limit numbers are $29 million. So this was just more of a making sure that we don't have any violations or need to do more intensive modeling. So I usually set the 3% and just say, okay, do we have any stress on our scenarios there? Answer is no. So I didn't push and look at 5s and making sure it was going to fit. Debt limit does not appear to be your constraining factor at this time, unless there's projects that not aware of on your list. But you could not get there with the 405 GO. You'd have to borrow against the extended save, which we don't have an extended save yet. So your ability to hit that is not in play. So comprehensive financial projection model. I'm just going to hit a couple highlights. So the top table gives you a few years of actual history and your current numbers. If I'm targeting, what numbers am I looking closely at? I'm looking at line 9, which is solvency ratio. I'm also looking at line 7, which is my unspent authorized budget as a percentage of expenditures. So this is also known as your spending authority number. So you'll hear it's called spending authority. So if you look where you're at currently at the end of fiscal 19 as a projection based on your line item budget, projected to end with 13.6% as your solvency ratio. So a couple of years ahead of the 12% goal. Also, your UAB as a percentage of expenditures at 21.5%, which is also healthy. Now, you can see that number's grown from 11 to 21, and it's also coincided with your ability to grow your solvency. I don't think as a district you really need to grow that number any higher than where it's at right now. This is one of those, and planning on basically ending this year flat from last year. I think that's good. If you can kind of stay in that 21%, that's a good number to be at. It gives you flexibility, especially as you continue to grow. Now, the projected down below, I'm still focused in on that same line 7 and line 9, but I'm also looking at a few of the policy variables that we have for assumptions. So SSA rate, or your state supplemental assistance, we have 2.1. It's actually going to be 2.06, so it's $1, $2 to $4 a kid. It's not a big difference. So we'll get that updated, but it's not going to change the overall scenario. Certified enrollments at 2.5% annual growth. Your annual percentage of property valuation change for tax rate purposes at 3.5%. So if I use a more aggressive assumption, it just means that your rate drops a little bit from the model. And so what I'm trying to do here is kind of back into more of a worst case scenario on your tax rate. Property tax rates at 1890 this year, the ability to show that rate dropping slightly over the upcoming years, 1875, 1850, 1850, and kind of holding flat there. That's assuming that general fund expenditures in aggregate, you have the ability to increase about 4.8% going into next year. Now, don't hear that like we can settle at 4.8%, because that 4.8% total increase includes your priority hiring, benefits, and salary structure. So that's kind of the big picture without getting into the weeds. I know as we move forward with your negotiation side, Gail will have a tool to kind of help you proxy that. Your amount under break-even spending is probably one of the most important metrics that I see on the bottom section. So moving to a scenario where you're spending your annual budget, which I think is a good practice now that you've risen up to a healthy unspent authorized budget. There are reasons to underspend your budget and overspend your budget, and you're right now to a place where it'd be good to level out. Now, are you going to hit this every year? You're not. You're going to miss it, because one of the things that you don't know going into your budget is what happens with your special education program funding. And you might spend what you expect, and then at the end of the year you come back and you claim back all of your deficit, and that's going to trigger that number to be over and under by whatever you missed on your estimate on special ed. So none of your misses in the past 4 years where you've been underspent have been anything that would have caused me concern. Those helped accomplish a couple things: get your unspent authorized budget where it needed to be, and increase your solvency ratio a little faster. So that's all prudent financial management. And now we're just kind of the next step. You're where you need to be. How do you kind of plan for the future? And so that's where we're targeting those general fund expenditure changes. Now, the thing that I would say is this all relates together. Now, if you see higher SSA, assume that you could spend higher on your general fund than what we have illustrated in the future. So what we're trying to do is set a trend line for the 5 years out where we're making a one-year decision that makes sense. And so kind of the one-year decision making sense is looking at spending about 4.8% to increase your total general fund expenditures. That still puts you under your break-even budget. So as you look through that priority hiring, and what you're going to see is a couple years of priority hiring on the budget from Gail. And what I would say with that is you have the ability to move, year 2 up to year 1 and year 3 up to year 2, but not increase the total that are outlined in your priority hirings over those 3 years. But you do have the ability to make some adjustments and spend a little bit more this year, but know that you don't get to spend more than what's on paper unless you get higher than 1% SSA. Now you might say, well, hey, we're in the gravy zone of 2% SSA now. I'm not real confident about what kind of the future state budgets look like, so that's why we haven't broke from putting 1% on the out years right now. But just know those are the assumptions that you might say those are a little conservative. You do see the line 7 spending down a little bit to the 20% range, but then kind of leveling off. I think that's fine. Your solvency ratio, you add to it for a couple years, you eat back into it for a few years. That's actually a function of that you're going to be maxed out at your cash reserve levy. So you're not really going to have the ability to do much else there. I mean, you're not going to be able to stop your solvency ratio from falling back to 12%. So it's one of the reasons that as you get into this year's budget, you're going to have probably a recommendation to not take your maximum cash reserve that you could. Because if you take the maximum cash reserve, your solvency ratio is going to probably shoot up to 17%, and then it's going to crash even further because you're always 2 years behind. It'll probably take you back down to 9. So trying to manage that and not get you too high. Now, the one area we do have some adjustment is on your management fund. You can see that's growing as a percentage of expenditures. All that tells me is you have the ability to potentially back off your management fund levy. But I'm also reserving that in your tax rate plan that if you do spend a little bit more money and you can take more cash reserve, then we'll go ahead and flip that, take more cash reserve and less management. So that's kind of my big picture synopsis.
I just want to remind them in fiscal year 20, we have Travis touched on our priorities because we work on that a lot with the administration. Fiscal year 20 is our 300,000 target, and then we have 100,000 for priorities for a couple of years. 3 years. 2
or 3 more years.
Yeah. So this year's the big year, and then we have 100,000 planned for the next.
So Travis, one of the things that we have on our 3 to 5 year priorities, and actually their annual goals, is to achieve a financial solvency rate of 12% by 2020 based on a 3% enrollment model. So if I read your information correctly, we're right about on target for where that would be. Are you talking about?
You're ahead. You're ahead on target.
Yep. Okay.
Yep.
We ended last year almost at 12%.
Yep.
So can you just touch briefly on the cash reserve levy and that you said maxed out? Because I think maybe this is where Lindsay's going. I mean, we're back to where, I guess, minimum solvency.
Yep.
And realizing we don't want to become a bank and just keep taking that higher and higher. But what balance should we have with the cash reserve? Should we
I think you should be in 13 to 15. So my concern here, and not that I'm going to, I mean, everybody, the administration is going to love me right now. Because I'm going to say that these out-year priorities where you're underspending your budget, you could accelerate those each year. Because what that'll do, what that'll do is that'll actually lower your solvency ratio a little bit. And you can afford them. The concerns are just, what happens with the state budget.
You don't get the 1%.
You don't get the 1%. It's going to make it tougher the next year. Now, do keep in mind, we got increasing enrollment here to it, and we backed it down a little bit to 2.5%. That can be a stressing factor a little bit. So we just have to manage that. Now, what I would probably hold off is, make a one-year decision that you could take a little bit more, maybe shift 50,000 forward into 20, out of 21, and leave 21 at a 50,000 priority. That would probably be, if I were to tweak around the edges, that would be it. That would probably keep you just slightly under 15%. Because what's happening is once you get here, your cash reserve is limited to somewhere around 700,000. I'm going from memory. And you eat almost all of that up with your special education program funding. And then you also have other not on-time funding stuff with the SBRC. So those in themselves pull you down because you spend more and you get back the authority.
I mean, wouldn't you say the goal actually would be to try to just keep that level?
Yeah.
Right? Because my concern would be if the next big project might be out at 2024, and if solvency impacts rating, it also impact the.
Yeah, and this is good. This is good shape here still.
But it's headed in a downward direction.
Yeah, from 14 to 12.5, and those would be ones that, when you get out here, you're spending break-even budget. So I'm not concerned there. Okay. The reason it's going down is because these balances here at 16 and 14.6 are too high to allow you to levy back enough cash reserve to keep your funding or your solvency ratio static.
Standard & Poor's won't be concerned with that direction either?
No, because by the time we get out to fiscal 22, we have another 2-year plan that will be able to show them what happens. Because really, 2025 looks better because you kick back up above 12% if we had a 6-year model here.
And they'd get worried about line 6 keeps being positive. You're over on line.
They don't care about line 6, unfortunately. They really are in on the cash. So this was the pressure point, 1.2, 1.6, 7. They saw the trend line and they understood and buy into where you're going.
Well, they
don't care how you.
They must be new on how that number up there gets picked off.
Or they don't care. That's just what is the number.
Yeah. So high
You get the cash
level,
from
this
somebody, we
looks
don't
good.
care.
There's still some tweaks around the edges on some of the out years. Some of the prior models did have you with 1.5% out in years 4 and 5, but we've just backed that down as we kind of let the economy kind of spin through here.
So it's positive, and you've got some pretty conservative numbers in 1, 2, and 3.
Yeah, so if you do start spending money and you have the ability to do more cash reserve, we'll back off the management fund there because you don't need to continue to grow that balance any further. Having it at 4 years of expenditures as a part of your overall 5-year plan doesn't cause me concern, but if you don't ever have a plan to spend it down, then that probably doesn't make a lot of sense. So. Anything to add there?
No.
Okay. Then there's just some charts that kind of pull this same thing together. Tax rate plan will be something to obviously manage. If you have large spikes in enrollment and your valuation doesn't pick up as much, that can change some of these trends. You know, one of the levies that's property tax sensitive is the additional levy, because that kind of, you pick up what state aid doesn't hit, and you guys have been relatively stable, and we project that to be pretty stable. So this first chart picks up your solvency and your trend line. While you do see the bars go down in the orange, you know, they will kick back up. So that's where I say if you're designing this, you know, ideally, you know, you take down this orange bar and allows these other orange bars to just stay a little bit higher. But that's a rate of spending. It's actually really hard to nail that perfectly just because of all the things that you face that are not controllable with just, oh, we got a teacher in here. You know, you don't know how the special education funding hits that, and that hits those orange bars up and down. So there's going to be a little bit of flex there. So that's all I really have on the 5-year projection. Any questions on that? Spent a little bit more time than I thought I was going to.
It's good, no. Thank you.
Okay. What am I doing? I better get moving. All right, voted bond. Now, not a bunch of charts with numbers. So financing plan, relatively simple. And I would just mark this as kind of the earliest date you could kind of look at that next major capital piece. So I'm calling this a 2025 project. No need to move any faster. If you don't have a project, you don't have to move this fast. I would caution you with looking at a 2024 project just because the numbers don't get there. Because unless you had 7% valuation growth and a bunch of new kids, there's two things that are reliant upon the valuation growth. One is how much debt you've prepaid through fiscal 25, and the second is levy dollars available. So those two lines on the chart are very property tax sensitive, and having that additional year that makes 6 years growth certainly helps. So the financing plan would be to continue to levy 405, which is what was built into the model that we had previously. The few pages we just saw, all of those assume that we did a 405 debt service levy going forward. Beginning future project planning in the spring, summer, fall of 2024, voting bonds in the winter of 24, spring of 25, and then a 20-year borrowing in the spring of 25. So none of the, you know, managing across a couple budget years, trying to get 21 years, just kind of real simple, down to earth. Now, with 3% valuation growth, you can see the numbers on the left. I'm going to talk scenario 2 with the 5, because Tyler might get angry if I don't use the higher number. No. This gives you at least you know, a good ballpark, but
we're just proud of you.
Yeah, I know.
This is really good.
Thank you. So when you get to 5%, if you have 5% annual growth, you'll be able to prepay $3.2 million of your outstanding debt. That would save $1.4 million of interest. Your taxable value as of fiscal 26 would be about $770 million, up from the 580 I think it is right now. Levy dollars available in the 405 become $3.1 million. Your first principal on the new debt is 2026, but largely it's a wraparound schedule where you're not paying much principal until you get out to 2038. You know, the bonds that we just issued, it'll be essentially wrapped around to create a new level debt schedule. Your new borrowing amount would be $23.4 million, which would give you about $23 million of project funds. So if we take like an annual project inflation, you would be thinking of that projects in today's dollars around 17.1 million. So if you're thinking, well, what could we get for 17.1 million today? Kind of becomes that target with 5% growth of what does scenario 2 look like. So it's a number to start with as far as designing. I don't know if 5% is a good annual project inflation, but I picked a number out of thin air to make it work. So all in all, I mean, we can run other scenarios, but I think this at least gives you a rudder to kind of think through, you know, what type of scope could we be looking at. Now, I would put 13.3 as the absolute floor. You're probably looking somewhere between 15 to 18 million in today's project dollars, kind of as a realistic range. So, questions on that?
What was the ballpark estimates on that elementary school? I don't even recall. I was thinking, was it 20?
I don't think it was that.
Wasn't that big?
I don't think they were quite that high.
Future dollars might have been close.
Because we were pretty close. Yeah, future dollars might escalate after that, but we were able to do, if you recall, we were debating on scenario 1 or scenario 2.
Yeah. 3 grades, right?
We're either going to do everything we've done, or
the other.
Yeah,
that's right. That's right.
This is like 15, 16,
That's
17
what I thought.
maybe.
Okay.
But I mean, you know, that goes forward a handful of years, it's probably closer to that 20.
Yeah, and likely you're not done with, you know, tweaking the other buildings in that. So, you know, that would be total. So if you're looking, if we had 18 and we could, in today's dollars, let's say we said it's 5.25 or 5.3% growth, and you have 18 and you need 15.5 for the elementary, gives you 2.5 million for other priorities that you might have at the district.
Oh, I see.
So, that's all I got.
Very good.
Administration will invite me to every meeting. Like, keep talking. It's fine. Yeah.
That's great
See, when you
information.
use 5%, everybody.
If I did 5%, yeah, we'd find all kinds of money. Yeah, Lindsay.
Nope. Thank you, Travis.
Thanks, Travis.
No problem.
I've been emailing you all day.
What's that?
I've been emailing you all day.
Yeah, I got that email. I was in Council Bluffs all day, so budget workshops this week. I get to. Well, tomorrow's Albia. I don't have to, or Creston. I don't have to go.
Drive safe.
And then Coralville Wednesday, and then I'm off Thursday. Matt gets Albia, and then I go to Cedar Falls on Friday.
Good luck.
Safe travels.
Bring on the snow.
Yeah.
Thave you guys.
Yeah.
If you have other questions or want to see any tweaks, just let us know.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
All right, moving on to the 2018-19 district priorities and annual goals. I actually don't know who's giving this update.
I'll give you a little bit before I get to this. Just remember what Travis said was basically that our solvency ratio is actually where we need it to be. So that's one of the things that we have on our overall goals that are actually back there in poster form. They're supposed to be around the schools. Also, we've used that forecasting tool to evaluate our staff plans and facility preparation. So we've introduced that to you guys so that you're well aware of that. We're working with the AEA when we're talking about engaging the district and the community stakeholders. We're working with the AEA to provide facility leadership for the stakeholders involved. We've done that on January 9th, looking at those 3 to 5 year priorities, which I'll be getting to in just a second. And we're using that third-party vendor. Carrie, I'm going to ask you just a quick question. One of the things it talks about as far as on that is talks about define the portrait of a graduate and talks about building the points and the pillars. We talked just briefly before tonight. Do you want to just a quick short update there?
Yeah, we have our words pretty finalized. Global citizen, collaboration, communication, character, creative, critical thinker / problem solver. We want to tweak them maybe just a little bit, but with all the work we've done, it just keeps coming back to those words. So then the next step is really that defining them as a district, and we've taken some of the work, from what we've learned on January 9th, we've taken some of that to help solidify that. But the next step will be defining them as a whole and then breaking that down by building, grade spans.
Can you see
And then
those
what does
words?
that look like?
Can you see those words again?
I
Sorry.
sure can. Global citizen, collaborator, communicator. This is the one we had, I mean, character. I'm not sure exactly how that will be said, but that's the gist of it. Creative, critical thinker slash problem solver. So we have to make the decision, do we want to keep that like that? We just want to keep critical thinker because then we're sticking with the C's except for global citizen. But we're on the right track. I hope that answered that question.
Yeah, no, that's perfect. Thank you.
So as we continue on with looking at some of these different annual priorities, one of the things under continuous learning, we talk about training 20 additional staff in instructional, the IPI process. And I think, Carrie, you mentioned that we've had one round, I don't know, what was it, 12 or something like that you said? We got
Yes.
another round coming?
In October, we trained 12 more teachers from the previous year. And then in the end of March, we have another round, and our hope is to have 10. We have 7 registered right now, and I'm waiting to hear back from just a couple if it fits in their schedule, but we've already got the date set, and we're doing it here in district again.
And what was important to the board was about student engagement. One of the things that we put down there was collect student engagement 4 times throughout the year by the trained staff. And I believe there's one coming up shortly.
Next week,
and
round 3.
then one in April, is that
and
right?
And then one at the end of April.
Okay.
So we, all buildings will be done either Tuesday, Wednesday, or Thursday of next week. The schedules are the data collectors, which is, our teachers. They're finalizing that in the buildings of how that looks, and then the following week, probably each building has set it up a little bit different. Monday or Tuesday, they'll have their looking at the data and having those discussions building by building.
And then another thing we talked about was the authentic intellectual work, the AIW, the instructional practices, and the project-based learning, having the professional development opportunities, and those have been set up throughout the year for our staff. You want to add anything there, Carrie?
When it's looking at that student engagement piece with the IPI, that really is led by teachers of looking at what does our engagement look like, and how do we want to move that needle or tweak it a little bit. So those are really led by and differentiated by the needs of each building.
And then last, we have talk about community district priorities, effectively getting those out to the stakeholders. When we have the next school improvement advisory committee, that will be an opportunity. Social media, I talked to Jen Schnormeyer, she's the guru, I guess, of our district on that, and that has been put out on our social media. District website, I think Deb and I had a conversation, and those have been updated. Thank you, by the way, for that information, Deb. The digital newsletter, I talked to Jen in our office, and that will be out. And then the Gilbert app, I think, Amy, you're the kind of the guru of that, and that's out there, is that correct?
I'm going to put it out there. I put a couple of rock hop things, and I don't like to bombard them because I want to make sure they read it. So we'll put it in there.
Thank you very much. Really appreciate that. What I wanted to update you on, if I can go ahead, Brian, on this 3 to 5, and Kim or Carrie jump in here. One of the things that we had an opportunity to do was we had an opportunity in a small group to sit down with Jim Verlinja and John Schaldall and talk a little bit about the information. I said the board's going to be disappointed because they were, I think, hoping that you guys would be coming tonight giving them information, and they got stuck with me giving them some information here. The thing, I'm going to tell you the reason why. First of all, one of the things that we talked about was that we wanted to make sure that we are working towards identifying those priorities for the 3 to 5. And we've collected that quantitative data from the evening that we had on January 9th, and they shared a little bit of that with us. The thing that we felt, though, as we talked in our meeting was that we have 2 key groups that we feel are very, very important. and that's the board. You guys are extremely important. We want your input and where you feel things are going, and then it's the group to the left, and that would be our administrative team. What they're basically doing is, I think that each of you have gotten a survey. Hopefully you've sent that survey in. If not, if you can get that into them, then they're going to go ahead and put that data together. What they would like to do, though, at board members is they would like to go ahead and set up a time where they're going to take your data specifically, put that together, and talk about that. I don't know if this is the right way to figure out a work session to do that, but I've got the dates that they can't come and meet, and I want to see if you guys can pull out your phones or whatever you have, and if we can look at things, that would be great as far as a possible work session.
Lindsay, can we move that down to talk about that in the calendar time?
We sure can.
Is that okay?
Yep. Do you have any questions? I didn't read word for word what was in the paragraphs there. I figured you got the information ahead of time. Kim or Carrie, do you guys want to add anything from our discussion that we had when we met with them the end of January?
The one thing that I would just tack on to what you said, Mr. Beecher, is the fact that for them to come and share out, there was 2 groups missing, your group and our group. And then that gives a very well-rounded picture as to where are we all in that. And then, because if we filled that out, after reading that, that could, kind of sway your thinking or whatever. So this way, it really gives a true picture of how to get where we all feel that that's at. So that would be the reason that was, if you're like, well, why couldn't they, because they wanted to have all that information when they do a work session.
There's value in fresh eyes.
Yeah, right. That's right.
Yeah.
Yes. Kim, you want to add anything?
No, well, yeah. I mean, I was just very surprised at the data they brought back and the priorities, because we had 5 very distinct groups, and yet they were all very in sync. And so that's why, amongst the group, we decided, okay, let's throw these other 2 groups in, because if all of a sudden, we throw everybody together and we have our 3 priorities just staring us in the face naturally without struggling, how awesome would that be? So,
administrative team, what will happen is that they will go ahead and take a period of time when maybe we're in one of our administrative team meetings, and they will facilitate a short work session on that information that you've added. Okay.
Thank you, Lindsay. Let's go ahead and let's do this. Administrative reports. Can we start with Deb in the back?
Yes.
Please.
Please.
Yeah.
Because I'll just dive straight up. 5 o'clock comes really early in the morning for me, because that's when my day starts. I'm glad to be here. I'm Deb Purcell. I thought that maybe you'd like to know some of my background. I've done years and years and years in healthcare. Got really, really, really tired of 60 and 70-hour weeks. And when the opportunity came open, I saw it come open in the fall, and I said, oh, not quite ready. And then it came open again, and I said, okay, I'm going to give it a shot. And just Mr. Beecher's lucky hired me. Yeah, very good. I think he does that sometimes. And for me, what I found is the learning curve coming from healthcare, where we have a stack of regulations like this. I was thinking, the schools can't be as regulated, and it's just a level playing field straight across. Except for, got kids on one side, seniors on the other. They're both really similar because neither one of them have filters. And I don't discourage them. I'm everyone's grandma at the elementary school, and I'm good with that. That came from one of the kids, and I just said, yeah, we're not going to talk about that. But they're fun. I'm very glad to be here. I think we've got some exciting things going on. Right now, I'm buried up to kind of my eyeballs and alligators. We're getting ready for an every 3-year audit. And so they send a whole list of 5 or 6 pages of things you've got to have ready. And guess what? We don't have them ready. But I guarantee you by April, the week of April 8th, they will be ready. They'll be in a notebook. They'll be ready to go. More progress happens every day. Working with Martin Brothers diligently, again, reminded my salesman today, I really want a mini food show. Martin Brothers did those for me in healthcare. I have no reason to believe that they can't get 5 brokers to come in and donate 10 cases of free food. We'll prepare it in the kitchen, set it up in the cafeteria, let the kids go, and let them make some choices. Our menus are tired. I will admit to that. They're tired. They've been there a long time, but they're kind of below on the priority scale right now. The audit is number 1. Numbers. I really like my numbers in January. What we did in January is we started using actually the commodities that we have in storage here in the school. And so I didn't bring it up. I know you guys get my numbers. You look at what they do, but the numbers, okay. Somebody else has them for me. January looked really great, or my first December looked really great. And what we did differently in December, we actually started using our commodities that we have in storage at the middle school. And so instead of purchasing more food from Martin Brothers, we used the food that we'd already purchased. We also stopped purchasing salads and making salads from scratch. We increased the number of a la carte items. When I started, I'll use high school is the place that's really starting to kind of, I'll just say, blow up. We started, if they made 6 pizzas at lunch, if they ran out in the first shift, they just said, well, we aren't going to do any more. And they didn't. And so they didn't. Well, thank you for laughing about it, because that's what I did. I went, oh, this just makes no sense to me. And so what we did is we increased it. Now we make 10 pizzas a day. And I would suspect as we go along, we're going to go up to 12. We also were making pizzas the kids didn't like. White, we were making pizzas and we were putting red peppers on it. I like that. The kids said, I don't eat that. So we make pizza with pepperoni on it. And they'll eat that every day. Every day. So, and that's an a la carte item. Ice cream, they're eating that. Their sandwiches, we started with 20 back in November when I started. Now we're selling 40 a day. So that's why my numbers are starting to get better. And then Mr. Beecher came along in January. I really had to get unhappy with him. He started calling snow days. And I didn't have just 1, I didn't have just 2, I had 4.5. The day that, I'm going to pick on Vic with this one, Vic came kind of coming in looking at me and he'd say, Deb, we're going to let people out early. And it was already semester test, so we knew our numbers were down. And then the snow day hit with that. Whoa! If he hadn't warned me, we would have had food that we wouldn't have known what to do with. We thought we'd have maybe 120 kids. I think we had 27 that day.
Wow.
And so I do expect my numbers to start turning around. I still say it was Mr. Beecher.
Yeah, full day today, though.
Yeah.
Full day today.
Yeah, full day today. I've got him on speed dial. That I would say, it's snowing out. We really need to go. I think we have a bright future. Things that we have already changed. We get money that's already been sitting there. It's been sitting there for the whole school year from the Department of Defense. It's $8,000 a year for this school year, and it's free produce. So what I've purchased with that, so far with that, is we're getting Honeycrisp apples, so no more Red Delicious, and we pay.
That's awesome.
This is what we pay for. We pay.
I can't eat
those apples, John.
Yeah, we pay absolutely nothing. And with that, it's only continental United States produce. But the oranges are wonderful. The cuties are wonderful. The apples are really good. The lettuce is good. It's fresh. And they deliver it once a week to us from Lafredo's out of Des Moines. And so right now I've got $6,500 left for the rest of the school year. And so what I've had to do already is start to project numbers for the next school year. So what I did with that produce number, because it is absolutely nothing, it is free, it comes in our door. I've increased that from $8,000 to $11,000 next year. And also this year we've got a commodity order coming in this Friday yet, and then we have one more again in April. And what I did with the April commodity, because I couldn't do anything with the commodity order that was coming in this week, but the one in April, I maxed out our money. Last year we left some money on the table, and I said, that stuff can sit in the freezer, or the cans can sit in storage. It just means for Gail, when she looks at me and says, I need the end of the year inventory, it just means I've got a few more cans to count. But it makes more sense to use that money that they're allocating us and divide it out. And what I chose, and then also I had to start choosing what would be purchased next year with the money. I looked at the things that cost us the most. Meat products, cheese, and meat products. Produce, or we've got the produce taken care of with the Lofredo DOD money from the Department of Defense. And the commodities, I looked at our highest cost menu items. Vegetables are relatively inexpensive. Bread's a huge expense. It is going to get a little bit better. They're dropping the requirement from 100% wheat to now I can have 50% of the wheat can be 51% grain. Vic laughed at me when I was trying to get that all out in one sentence. But you have to keep calculating how much and where that stuff is going to go. The future. I've got a student intern that's new for the nutrition department at Gilbert School. I look to have interns every year. The intern is working with me to get everybody in their professional training standards met. She's also doing National Breakfast Week. And I met with 3 girls from the 5th grade, and they were just really cute, 4th and 5th grade, cute kids. They wanted to know why I wouldn't put salt on their tables. That's a can't. If I do that, we lose funding. But they were able to make some choices, and one of the little girls kept talking to me that at breakfast she really likes our whole wheat pancakes, but she wants blueberry gravy on them.
Great.
I loved her turn. So what's happening with our intern is one of the things she's charged with as an Iowa State student, she's charged to develop a recipe. So she's developing a recipe for blueberry gravy that we're going to have on the whole wheat pancakes during National Breakfast Week. And also banana split parfaits. So we are looking to get the new items in, but it's coming. I think we've got a lot of good things going. I've got some really terrific help. I know that I've spun them a little bit. It's different for them. And it's okay. It's okay. I'm good with that. But they're having fun. So, what do you have for me?
Department of Defense. So
yes, Department of Defense.
You don't have to spend a lot. Yeah. What's the connection there that there's funding from Department of Defense?
I really don't have. Part of the rationale when I did the training on that was because they're such a huge purchaser of fresh produce that they could make the dollars go the furthest.
Great. Thanks for taking advantage of that.
Now it's anytime that we can get, one step better, it's the way to go. Because the reality is when you start looking at some of the whole grains and then they take the salt away from it at the same time, and then you kind of go, ooh.
Yeah.
And but we're starting to use more spices. The girls actually used some dill today. Oh. I get scared. Carrots with dill on it. And so that's where we're at. That's where we're going. I think it's going to work.
Yeah, no, that's a great update.
Yeah, I appreciate the update, and a couple of things I'd say. First of all, I'm already hearing positive feedback from some of the kids. You know, you overhear what they're saying, and it sounds like they appreciate the voice in the menu, because that can make a difference, right? I'm sure that they appreciate you reaching out for that feedback, but and I just appreciate the report. I liked the numbers. I liked the kind of methodical approach you're going through and trying to run this. So.
I think one night I was talking to my daughter who's a school nurse, and I just said, I want this done, and she just said, oh Mom, remember, you can't eat the elephant all at once, one bite at a time.
Right.
Well,
good job.
Yeah, very good.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. And what day we'll be having the blueberry gravy?
National Breakfast, School Breakfast Week is the first week of March. So,
We'll send them out an email.
We'll send out an email, and yes, please come and have blueberry gravy.
Thank you very much, Deb.
Yes.
Thanks, Deb.
Other administrative reports? No more. Great. All right. Thank you. How about announcements and celebrations?
Announcement, not only celebration, but we're working to reschedule the 6/8 choir concert that was scheduled for tonight. It's a challenge finding a night that doesn't have rescheduled basketball.
Yep.
Because we haven't had much of a basketball season, but so we're working on figuring that out.
Well, and you have to make the Valentine songs make sense, right?
Well, yeah, I mean, and we with the musical in March, and then he's got another concert in the spring, and so the farther back you push this, it shortens the practices for that. So I agree. If Mr. Beecher would just quit calling school, I'd be.
Thank you, Mr.
Things are going well.
We posted the assistant principal position a couple weeks ago, and we have 60 applicants right now.
60?
So we have quite the process over the next 2 weeks to screen candidates and start interviewing, and hoping to have that wrapped up before spring break. So,
fantastic.
wide swath of experiences and abilities, so it's going to be great.
And was it 3 wrestlers moving on?
Oh, yeah.
And the Jazz.
Yeah.
Yeah, one.
Jazz Alliance, I think they're calling themselves this week.
Yeah,
Won first place or something.
3 wrestlers will be representing us. Basketball playoffs start through the weekend into next week, and so winter sports will be wrapping up soon, and then into the spring we go.
I do have one other announcement. The annual middle school dodgeball is Friday, March 1st, so you're all invited to come. We'll waive the admission. It's $2 admission, but we'll waive that for you guys if you want to come. And if you've not seen it, Tyler, you've seen it. Garrison's played in it.
There's a board team. We get it waived. We get it waived if we stand in the middle.
If the board wants to create a team and take on the champions, that would be fantastic.
What's your team size?
That'd be good.
Size or numbers? Yeah.
I think they might have 6 or 7 on the court. I'm not sure. I don't remember.
So we have to do a little bit for anyway. This is good.
Well, you have right there.
I'll choose Gail.
So, if a board wants to get a team together, you sure can.
Perfect.
We'll give you a bye to the finals.
Oh, I like that.
I'll volunteer my son to be on the team that takes on. He was on an 8th grade team that beat the high school team, I think, when he was an 8th grader.
Yeah.
When the high school team came back, I think Garrison was on.
Yeah, they play the rest.
Nobody has learned this thing though. Where you toss it
Don't
over the
give it. Don't.
So Friday, March 1.
Geez, now they all know.
If you're looking for something to do on Friday, March 1st, middle school dodgeball practice.
Blueberry gravy right after that. Thank you. How about to my fellow board members? The much delayed ISB convention feedback I feel is very far away at this point. I hardly remember it, but are there any key takeaways that we should discuss at the table?
I had one, and what I just wanted to get it kind of a sense. One of the school districts, let's see who it was here. Here's my notes. What they did was that they changed the matrix, and what I kind of thought is it might be. I think it would it may have some advantages to our teachers. So I thought maybe that would be one thing that we could ask if the union had any interest in that. I think it has a lot of advantages to it for our teachers, and I think it would work equally well for the district. So it may be just one thing that we at least float out there for them to maybe Mr. Beecher and whoever wants to go from the union just to go visit with that district and see if it has some.
Where was it, John?
Was it Cedar Rapids?
It was Forest City, North Iowa, and Riceville.
Riceville, that's right.
And I think, you know, and it may not have any merit, but I kind of thought, boy, it should work better for everybody involved and just provide a little bit more flexibility in kind of hitting, you know, the areas that we want to hit. But I want to just throw that out so that nobody gets caught off guard. What? It would just be one of those, look at, we could kick the tires on it over the next year or two. There wouldn't be any sense of urgency to it. But the idea is if the teachers thought it was good and we think it's good as administrators, I thought it just made a lot more sense than what we're doing right now.
Have they done that a couple of years ago to have a couple of years track running on that? Or
Yeah,
what?
they have, and it's really kind of just simplifies the project, and then kind of what they did is they kind of rolled off the old levels is what they rolled on to the new, so there wasn't this, okay, how's it going to impact me when we make the switch? But I thought it had some merit. It was at least worth talking about. You know, it may or may not come with it, but if everybody thought it was a good idea, then we could talk about it a little bit.
I went to the same session, and I thought the same thing, that they had a lot of good questions from the audience, and it seemed like they had an answer for almost everything, and it was a relatively overall positive, like kind of everybody was winning along the way, and it just took some creativity on their part. Again, I mean, they're there to promote something great that they did, not to necessarily reveal all of the struggles, right? But it would, I agree with you, John. It was interesting to think, like, just injecting some creativity into this whole thing, like what kind of stuff can you pull off?
So,
You know, and thinking about that, how we come from a very complex schedule. How do you know, it's mind-boggling to think of, man, can we simplify this?
yeah. And the term they used for it was tiers. So instead of having the lanes and steps, it was discussed as tiers, and so.
Not
anyway.
TEAR.
No, not those. We're done with that.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I just real quick sat in on a session. It was Clear Lake. Lindsay probably knows that superintendent there, I think, was splitting between a couple schools.
Between Mason City and Clear
Between
Lake.
Mason City, Clear Lake, and had the opportunity to then focus in Clear Lake. And the reason I sat in was because something about visioning, and I guess it basically gave me confidence that we're headed in the right direction by including more of the community, because he talked about going out and meeting with people and just trying to rally the community and in the process getting feedback to then, I think a year or two after he was full-time there, then engaging in strategic planning like what we're doing. So that, I don't know if you know the gentleman, but it might not hurt to check in with him and just, because he certainly had a lot of good insight on how to go about the strategic planning, Lindsay.
Thanks.
I think I mentioned the session I went to was about protecting student data. Kind of fell on mine with some things that I worked on in my career. I was very curious about it. It was informative for me. I don't know that it was any changes to what we do here, but yeah, it was. I thought it was a good conference overall. I actually loved the keynote this year when we talked about the generational differences. I thought that was very insightful and kind of changed the way I think about things with kids these days, you know.
Yeah, the technology drifting up.
Yeah.
We think technology goes from adults down. It actually goes
Yeah.
from kids up.
Yeah.
I thought that was a very interesting
really,
observation.
All right, thank you all. Made it to 5:01. Hail update on the tennis court and intermediate track. Thank you all for being patient. I blame the finance guy, he was really talking the whole time. Give it to Travis. So yeah, Sam or Art, do you have an update?
Yeah, Art's going to talk first about the tennis courts project, and what you have in front of you, I think is what was the same thing as in the board packet, so sometimes it's easier just to look at it in front of you. Yeah, Art's going to share a little bit about this.
Yeah, so actually it was Tyler that reached out to us better part, what, 2-3 weeks ago, just inquiring, because I believe there's been some discussion with the city about some potential agreement that the city might come to with the school district. And so primarily we were, this is a graphic to kind of refresh the board's memory on some of the discussions from a couple of years ago with where potential future tennis courts might go, and then dovetail that with all the new updates that have come since that master plan was done a couple of years ago. So it sounds like that initially what it might look like for Gilbert is to pursue a 2-court layout for the tennis courts, which wouldn't serve a full tennis program for a school district of this size, but it might start to generate interest, and then eventually you'd want to expand that to 6 courts or potentially 8 is a more appropriate size layout for a school district of this size. The plan was a couple of years ago that the space south of the current parking lots would be where tennis courts would go. So this is where it lays out on the site. We actually have bidding tomorrow, tennis courts for Sadell School District, so we'll have some updated numbers on what do tennis courts cost these days. Initially, some kind of ballpark figures for a 2-court design are landing between $250,000 and $300,000 for that, and Tyler can explain the city's end of it a lot better than I can. It sounds like they have potentially some dollars that they would be willing to contribute towards that, and but a specific dollar amount I was.
Yeah, we were all at the joint meeting, and at that point, there is potential interest from the city. They need to continue to have further details from the developer of the new southwest development for the city, and there's potential there'll be some revenue coming from that. By the way, that meeting, and I can bring it up when we get the calendar, there's a meeting next Tuesday, February 19th at 6:30. So there's a city council meeting at 6, and at 6:30 they're going to hopefully be at a point where they're going to talk about this. And anybody's obviously welcome. I'm going to try to be back from a meeting in Minnesota to go to that, but I think it would be good to continue to show interest. When HALA came up with the estimates, those were higher than what we thought, but I'm not saying that they're not accurate, it's just our numbers are probably old. So the city initial response was, well, we don't have that kind of money. So I personally don't want that to just be the end of the conversation, so I think we should continue to see. Yeah. And also, especially for those of us that are in the city of Gilbert, express our interest, or if there is interest in tennis courts. So maybe leave it at that, and there'll be some more information coming up from the February 19th meeting.
Yeah, and as I mentioned, we have a project bidding for Sadell schools tomorrow, so we'll know if our numbers are crazy high or if we're kind of on the right.
I just appreciate that you put together the full site, and I think as we finish up these projects, continue to do that for all of the sites, so that there's a nice layout as school board goes forward. Yeah. But yeah, it's a nice location if that were to come to fruition, and this would represent an entire sport, you know, we could have a program if we had all 6 or 8.
I just wanted to add, there is a additional levy called Pearl for recreation, but it has to be, you have to have it as for a community that you could, it's a joint effort between a city or an organization, but it has to be for community, and it's about half of a 33 cent, and it's a vote of the people, but it's only, the revenue can only be used for anything the school has that the public is allowed to use. So just
So perhaps the track or tennis courts or...
we'd have to have a vote on it.
Yeah. Yep.
So the nice thing about that is once you put it in, it never expires.
So when you say it would be school district and school district vote, meaning the community or the school board?
The community.
So it'd be like a November ballot.
Yeah, or, yeah.
But it's something you could just put
I
on
would
the
say,
ballot?
I would say one of our elections, so
Yeah.
you don't have to have the expense of a special election.
Right.
So that's some information.
What's the acronym? PE?
Pearl.
Yeah, just like the
PERL, recreation level,
Okay.
educational recreation levy, excuse me.
Do you need support from the city on that?
No, we would do it on behalf of the school, and I think you just need 50% plus 1 to pass that levy. And so it would be, the only use of the community would be your uses for spending, but other than the school initiates it, they put it on their ballot, and then we would, any expenses that the school would have, we could use those funds.
And those funds could be combined with we could use it to add to what the city has and maybe complete a project? Okay.
Yeah, so it would be like, we could look at it as what our responsibility is as a community joint effort, and then we could use it to defray some of our costs. Just another form of revenue.
Okay. So when you say community, you're talking about Gilbert community usage, right? And so, but this would be voted upon by the whole school district. So even those residents' names.
If you lived in the Gilbert School District and can vote, then that would be yes.
Okay, so it'd just be the tax base of Gilbert.
Yeah. Yeah. Yes, it'd be our tax base. And the revenue source is like, it's about half of the 33 cent levy.
So it's half of what they're already getting taxed. That's what I'm not, or is this?
No, we have, the board has a board directed of 33 cents. The revenue is, the total revenue is about half of that 33 cent to have an idea of how much revenue it would create. So that's just something to keep in mind.
Any round numbers on our taxable base, what percentage, Gilbert? That'd be a good number. Not
Yeah.
Look that up, because then we could calculate what that roll would actually bring in, right?
Yeah. Actually, it's based on our a school's taxable valuation. I'm sorry.
It is the full district.
Full district, I'm sorry, yeah.
Even though like Deb's question, somebody in Northridge Heights.
No. It's our school district, so it would be half of the 33 cent.
Which is 190,000.
Right.
So
half of that?
Half of that.
95,000.
And then I can.
And it never expires. Once you vote it in, it never expires.
And so, but this meeting on Tuesday is just so that the people in the city council can talk and understand the interest from the folks in Gilbert about what it is, and that's what we're going,
No,
just kind of
it's
fact finding.
It's a step before that, Deb.
Oh.
It's a meeting with the developers.
Okay, that
To
are
kind of negotiate. Well, you're putting a development in, if you remember,
There's
they're
a
talking about
10%, there's a requirement.
We're talking about 40-acre development,
Yep.
4 acres. Do you want this green space? Do you want the revenue from 4 acres?
Mhm.
That's, I think, the conversation next Tuesday.
Okay.
And then I think what you're talking about would probably be the next step.
Yeah.
Good. Sorry, Brian, but that's.
No, that was good.
Thanks, Art.
Thanks, Art. Intermediate track?
Yes, intermediate track. So there's been a lot of discussion on how to proceed with the intermediate track, knowing of some of the immediate safety concerns that need to be addressed, even as early as this spring in preparation for track starting late March, March 25th, I believe, was the start date for that. And so we haven't made any moves toward the tracks just because of all the other numbers coming in from the other projects. But now that things are within budget, our current allocation for $78,000, we feel like we can go ahead and begin to use those dollars to address the track. We were kind of holding that as a safety valve potentially in case something else came in higher. Like I said, everything is in good shape for the other projects, and so we have $78,000 to allocate toward some sort of track repair, what I would consider like an immediate or even a short-term solution. So after weighing a lot of different options, there's a couple different track companies that are willing to do a kind of a two-phased approach, which we would recommend. This two-phase approach would be to do some immediate repairs on the things that, on the safety problems. There's a handful of tears, cracks, places that the track is split apart, holes, if you will, that can be fixed, if the weather works out, that can be fixed before the track season. And that's about a 1 to 2 year kind of potential time frame. So, however, we were in speaking with some of the folks, if they did a little bit more during the summer, right after the track season, we can get a 3 to 5 year solution. And the total cost for all of that is, a guy was very specific on an estimate, $53,000, which of course is below our budgeted amount of 78. So it's like I said, a kind of a two-phased approach. Do some immediate work and fixing before track season, and then a kind of a short-term fix that will be done this summer to take it to about another 3 to 5 years of life on the existing system. What that does is allow the new soccer practice field to be built, eliminating some of the pressure off the high school field and track in 2 seasons from now, and then allows us a little bit more time to think about a more exhaustive long-term solution or full replacement of the track potentially in a long-term scenario. So that would be our recommendation, is for us to put together a contractor quote request form to send it out to a handful of people who have expressed interest, that would essentially, like I said, fix the immediate stuff right away, and then they come back after track season and do the rest of the work this summer, which is basically kind of a spray-on top coat, and then a repainting of that, holding what's there together, like I said, for about a 3 to 5 year time frame. So that's kind of our formal recommendation we offer tonight, is this, for us to proceed with putting together this quote form to get some quotes by early March.
And Lindsay, want to go over, so you're proposing a competitive quote, which would be different than a competitive bid, which we would be voting on, but the dollar or Gail,
threshold.
Yeah, dollar threshold between those.
A competitive quote is as long as it's under $75,000 is a competitive quote. Anything up 75 or above would be a bidding process.
And the reason you're bringing it up that way, well, one is you expect it to be below that, but also just the timeliness of this, correct?
Correct, yeah. By sending it out to an open bid, there's a long process, as we've been experiencing for the past several months. The bidding process is a minimum of 2 or 3 weeks, and
public hearing,
and there's just some timelines that we have to adhere to. With this, it can be relatively quick.
And Sam's right from the standpoint of Mike has those middle school kids. They need to run on that track this spring, or at least run someplace that's safe. By doing it the way that you're talking about, you can go ahead and put it into a safe situation and do it fairly rapidly. And then if you guys can keep stretching that time frame out, 3, 5, 7, whatever. No, I mean, the biggest thing is that that'll allow us to at least have some other thoughts about what we can do. But again, the importance is making sure that we make it safe for those kids to run on.
Yeah, absolutely.
Sounds good to me.
And would the quote be, that would be for both parts, the immediate, hopefully, real short-term fix to make it safe, and then the summer project, you put that together?
Yeah, we'd be dictating that they have to have the short-term repairs done by whatever that date was. March 24th in time
The day
for track season.
before.
Yeah.
And then they have to get off of it until the track season is done, and they can do that the more intermediate term repairs after May 4th.
Do we need a motion on that tonight?
I don't have it on the agenda for a motion, but it follows board policy on our bidding threshold. So
we can just say we're in favor,
Yeah.
go forward and
yeah, I guess I didn't have an action item.
Yeah, is anyone opposed to this idea here? I mean, it's within our budget and it seems to move fast and address all of our needs.
And they'll bring back the competitive quote, and then we can take action. Approving the quote after.
And that'll be timely enough by the, whatever, March
11th.
Yep.
meeting.
March 11th board meeting is when we would target to have
Okay.
a recommendation on the backside of receiving some quotes. Yeah.
they can get it done in 2 weeks.
I was gonna say March 11th, we would say yes or no, and then they're supposed to have the work done by the 21st.
24th, correct.
Yep.
Yep. So, yeah, they only needed 2 or 3 days of 40 to 50 degree weather.
Oh,
That's happening
If
before.
they can target the first
Yes,
couple of
it
weeks
is.
of March, that would be more than adequate, he says. Now, it's still, so there is a caveat. If we don't get a couple of 40, 50 degree days, then it won't work. And not that we don't continue with the process.
You
but-
just do it when you can, and it's
Right.
available when it's available. Right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. All right, sounds good. Let's do it.
Okay.
Hayla, thank you.
Yeah, no
for
problem.
all
Thank you.
this. I appreciate that.
Yeah, we'll stick around for the rest of the.
Hey, on the 502 owner architecture contractor meeting minutes, we've all read through that, and board, if you have something you want to pull out, ask questions about, or if there's any like specific thing, love to talk through that, but I don't necessarily we don't need to like go through and review every line there.
Right.
I don't have anything specific to bring up.
I just included it for information.
No, I appreciate that.
Yeah.
No, I love that. I love that.
It's good to have it.
I like reading, I like all that stuff, and nothing stood out to me like, hey, I need more info.
It's a meeting we have every other week, so you'll be seeing them.
I got an agenda today, so
Yep.
for tomorrow.
Yep.
So no big red flags.
No. Nope. We should be done at the high school east with foundations by Friday with a built-in snow day. Technically tomorrow. They'll be here. They don't know how much production we'll get done. And then we'll move to middle school north, and that'll be about a week. And then they'll move to middle school south for foundations.
And the slow days, they can just go to the a la carte at the high school
Yeah.
and start getting pizza.
Yeah. Sandwiches and blueberry
Don't
gravy.
go to Casey's, they're too busy.
Yeah.
Just go to the high school.
That's awesome.
So real quick, sorry.
Yeah, no.
But I know that you're working on tightening up the expected completion dates.
Yes, so we have decals in our trailer.
Yep,
We're
whenever it
just
warms up.
waiting for, yeah. Charlie is waiting for a day that's probably above 20-some degrees.
Sure.
Which next week, the forecast looks like some 28 to 30 degree.
Yep. So great, there's great signage up, but on some of these now, because of the masonry, we got to push back.
Yep.
My point was, let's have as accurate a completion date,
Yep.
because these are going to be wonderful projects. The worst thing is somebody goes, well, they failed because it was
Yeah.
late, right?
Right.
Which gets me back to, if somebody wants to revisit the website, our website, those timelines need to be updated too. So if somebody can help, I'd say Amy nodding, but who would that be? With Amy?
Amy, you're on it?
If you could work with them, because those were updated because of some of those changes.
Adam, can you just review for everyone here just the timeframes of what you're looking at for finishes?
Yes, so the high school east will be ready for the start of school, which is the band room edition. The middle school north, we had, I think October 11th was our substantial completion date, which met, and later in October, wrestling meet, and I don't remember the specific date, the 20-something.
24th seems
Yeah,
like sticks out to me.
sounds right. The other additions were November, December, ready for school when you come
January.
back from
Semester.
school break over winter. So.
And this, and the
That'll be
intermediate and elementary is summer projects.
Yeah, we'll be ready for start of school.
So both of the project, or both of the classroom spaces, the additional at the middle school and the high school, is the November-ish?
Yeah,
December,
November,
or January?
December.
Yeah, ready for
I don't remember.
January.
It's staggered a little bit.
Yeah.
So
But ready for
I
January, I should
can
have said it that way.
look that up and send it. Like I said, I'll get in touch with Amy. So she
That'd be
can
great.
That's good, yeah. Thank
populate
you.
those.
I'll get it on the website.
Yeah, eventually. So we did have a meeting today too. Lindsay wasn't there. Steve and Dan were there with our phase pull schedule, so it's really scheduling the rest of the project all the way out with all the contractors in the room, the package contractors. So that was a good session today. We'll pull in all the finished contractors probably in another week to get everything built out all the way through the end. So if you come over and visit the trailer, you can see the complete schedule.
It's really cool the way he says that, because if you go into that trailer, they have it up on the wall, their entire schedule. And when we go to those every other week meetings, they're, you know, this is what we need to do, and it's all planned out. So I mean, it's really cool to see that, and to see, are we, you know, like I'm doing it, are we making progress, or are we behind, or whatever we're doing there? But it's really helpful.
Put the hard hat on and start working on it.
We do have hard hats, by the way. Yeah.
Actually, I have hard hats for everybody whenever they want them.
Oh man,
We got to go.
They're in my
visit
truck
some
right now,
meetings.
so if you want them tonight, I can go get them. If not, I can bring them at another time. So for administrators
I'll take
and
one.
yeah.
As I walk down the
Yeah.
bay. Nice.
Great, thank you.
Yep.
all right, well, I guess, Adam, you're still up with the
Yes.
recommendations for the remaining bid package 5.
Yes, so this is a continuation. A few meetings ago, there was a partial approval of the total. Just big picture reminder, so the bid package 5 are all of the miscellaneous type items that the construction manager takes care of. With bid issuance 1, we recommended $190,000, which was approved by the board. Moving into bid issuance 2 and 3, the dollar amounts that we recommend are listed. It totals another $135,132. Our original budget was $358,000 and change. With the budget I'm proposing continuation of tonight, we're about $33,000 under that budget, which gets us to the recommended approval amount of $135,132. These dollars were always included in the budget. We've just narrowed it down, and we have more detail now with the other 2 packages that have bid out. So this would be the landing amount moving forward.
Move to approve.
Second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
All right, I guess everybody stands approved. Thank you.
The other thing I was just going to
man.
mention, I try to hit on it every time that I'm here to talk about financial or budget. So the contingency dollars are still included. $550,000 is what we started with. We had 2 changes that were approved a couple of meetings ago, so we're down to $521,000. Still around the 4 to 5% of the overall construction cost for the whole project. Next month I'll have a 1-page summary that goes into bid package pay applications, and it'll show what's been billed and paid out so far and what's remaining. And it'll be a really good 1-page summary sheet to understand the budget and what's left. So.
The contingencies aggregate across everything?
Correct. Yep.
Thank you. I just want to say it feels really well managed, everything from what I see. And I'm not in the weeds of it, but just having you report on stuff is, I feel really good about it. I was nervous, like, 8 months ago, going into this whole thing of like, what are we getting into? And just you holding our hand, really walking us through. I mean, Tyler, you've done a lot of work too. I don't want to minimize anyone else's work, but like, I feel confident that we're doing a good job for our community on like this construction. And thank you all too. Sorry, everybody here.
Thank you.
I like the construction management approach, right?
Yeah.
Because we've got somebody that's working for us.
Right.
So I know it's a change, but I think that's really good.
Yeah, no, I like it a lot. I feel really confident.
Yep.
Thank you. Thank you for your time. Appreciate it. All right, on to new business. Nutricise Software Services. This is an annual thing.
Yep. You can click on the you can click on the menu, click on the picture. If it says popcorn chicken, it'll give you a picture of the nutritional facts. Recommend approval.
I mean, it's something we have to have, right? They use it to help plot out menus and identify what the nutritional boundaries are, right? So we know that we're
Right, and if
meeting.
people have medical issues, diabetic or whatever, they can use it to calculate their.
But
It also
this
talks to our app, which is nice because it just automatically loads, and I know Stacy and I have all taught, or we haven't, our teachers have, but they go through and just show the kids, and I mean, I know my own kids in Maureen, they just know how to get on an iPad and they can look, we don't print menus.
It integrates with Alexa too. My kids ask Alexa, what's for lunch? And it tells them.
No way.
Yes,
Really?
it's amazing.
Well, that will probably be the new thing at my house.
Mm-hmm.
What'd you have to do, sync?
I'll tell you later.
Okay.
It's a secret. Don't tell anybody who might be watching.
I've had it for
No,
years.
you enable the NutriSlice Alexa to
Yeah.
set up what school is your, like primary school.
Well, that is
It's
really
awesome.
I'll have to
Go look at the calendar on the
Oh,
fridge.
cool.
Anyway, who wants to keep approving this Alexa skill for us? Deb, you-
Second.
Okay, good.
Who motioned?
Deb was first, Tyler was second.
Tyler, okay.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, stands approved. Thank you all.
Move to approve the school calendar.
Second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, stands approved. Preliminary 1920 budget information.
I won't take very long, but you guys, Travis was a great beginning of the conversation. So this is, went to a budget workshop on Friday. So as of right now, it looks like with an SSA of 2.06, doing a dropout and then the cash reserve for special ed plus a additional cash reserve of $700,000. This does not maximize our cash reserve. And then management is increasing because we're going to increase that and have a balance for early retirement and some other things, and to get our total levy to where we want it. And maximizing our debt service for 405. So we're at, right now, it would be, our total levy would be 18.87, and our goal is always to be about 1990. We want to stay consistent and not have variations. So right, with this right now, this is what is our estimate. So SSA is not finalized. They're saying that it's on target, so we should, they're hoping February 14th that it'll get approved. So that would be great news.
That's not early, that's on time, right? They were just
That's on time. That's 30 days out from when they started on January 14th.
Yeah.
That's impressive.
So this is, I don't think it's anything that we haven't talked about, so, yeah.
Can you scroll up? That was 1887.
Yeah, 1887. And then I have it down here too.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
if we were to pursue that pearl that you brought up earlier, which it's a good idea, that wouldn't be in this year, it'd be in
No,
the following
it'd be
year.
the following year. Yeah.
Which
Because our
Travis-
election,
Yeah.
excuse me, go ahead.
Because Travis had projected just about that number in his projection,
Yeah.
but then down 15 cents the next year, which would be about what you call that pearl.
Yeah, and then, and so basically, when we work with this, that's where our management is up, and Travis talked about it. You only have two, we're gonna reduce our cash reserve a little bit, increase our management, so then when if we would take an opportunity to add a levy, we have some room to reduce the management. You know, it'd be nice if our special ed deficit was down a little bit, so it's definitely all doable and manageable.
Yeah, I don't know if that'd be a plan for the long-term fix for the track too.
Right.
Intermediate.
Just get that pearl in there. Do
Yeah, it's open to the community.
And
And
that'll be, whatever you said, $95,000 annually coming in for these sort of
Right.
things.
Right.
So, and we have to have legal to work that through. But the other thing is, I don't think it's community. So I think we need to think about community. Who is our community?
Yeah.
You know? I think we do. So, I don't know. And it's just something to give, you know, not a lot of districts have it. So, but it's there. It's another vehicle, so.
You could make a pretty good argument for tennis courts, even though they're at our high school, fit anybody in North Ames for that matter, as long as they're available.
Right. Right.
Good.
Plenty of parking.
Plenty of parking.
So,
All right.
Use it.
Do you have an approval of this?
no, this is
Approval?
just
Oh, no, it's not.
preliminary.
Just
So,
information. All right.
we will, next month, we will have information to direct a public hearing, publish it, and direct a public hearing. The public hearing will be the second week in April, which is it April 8th? I'm thinking that's what it was. So
Yep.
it would be our budget.
There it is. Yeah, you have it down on the calendar too. Thank you. Okay. We have a request for the art club to Chicago.
Vic, you want to add anything? They've done this in past years.
Yeah, it's an annual trip. It's a good experience for the students.
And it needs an approval from the board. Is that right?
Yeah,
they're
it's
going
out
on
of state.
All right. We have a motion.
Second.
Second from Kim. Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
All right. Stands approved. Thank you.
What's that? I'll be loud.
All right, and then for the Heart of Iowa increase for student admissions from $3 to $5. This is from Tim, right?
Yeah, I'm the messenger on this, or I guess he's the messenger. I don't know. Whatever. We're giving you the information. The fact that he did tell me there are some that do not want to raise it in the Heart of Iowa. I think it goes on the majority. He did say that when we move into the Raccoon Conference, Raccoon River Conference, is that the way he said it? They are 5 across the board.
I just have one question on this. I think this is reasonable for us. With one question, I think most families can afford this and all this stuff. But if you can't afford this, I read that underneath here, so the boosters. Like, I'm just curious. Like, is that a big deal to get them to help out with the pass if a student could afford it? What is the policy there?
I think it's like number 3.
Do you guys know? Have you guys done anything with that before?
I think we could make those things happen if it's an issue.
Okay. Yeah. Again, I think 90-some% of our population can afford this without question. Some people really couldn't, though. I want to make sure we're aware of that.
There are families that have reached out about events, and we normally let people.
And it doesn't affect the activity pass, though. If they get a yearly activity pass, that didn't go up, right? Did I read that right?
Right.
And raising prices from 3 to 5 and not raising activity prices, sorry. Yeah. So the activity, if you get an activity card, that's still
The same.
the same.
Yeah.
It's not, right?
Perfect.
It's if you do it on the per game.
And there are some, I'm just telling you, there are some schools that are going to say no out there. And there's some schools that will say yes, so.
Okay.
I think it's a great idea to emphasize that number 3, and I realize it's a small percent,
Yeah.
but do it some way that they feel like they can receive it without embarrassment, right?
Yep,
So
absolutely.
I think
With
that's
dignity.
great. With dignity, that's good. So I'm glad you brought that up. Move to approve.
Second.
All right. Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
All right. Stands approved. Thank you. All right. We're doing it. Financial report scale.
I really won't take much time to review this, but I have just had a couple of points. Deb went through the nutrition, so I'm not going to touch on that. On the financial, it was the reds all seem to be on the timing of the revenue this month. So that was the point I wanted to make about that, because that affected, there we go, that's where I want it. The monthly revenue affected basically the timing. That's a timing thing of revenues, so that's why it was the revenues for year to date. And then Deb touched on the nutrition of 4 less days when she was talking about it. Other than that, I really don't have any other concerns or anything that popped out, but that doesn't mean that you guys don't, so I'll leave
4
it to-
less days, meaning we planned and got food ready for 4 days.
4 less
and then
days.
didn't use it.
They just
Didn't
don't
get
have
any
consumers
revenue
for 4
from it.
days.
It'll affect our sales, our revenue.
Right, but it's,
Yeah, it's just delaying it, hopefully, because we have to tack it on at the end.
But they wouldn't have come in and cooked, so we didn't waste it. We just don't have the sales.
The sales, it's the revenue rate.
We'll get it later.
Well, the early
Yes, they
outs,
did.
yes, but not the full days.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but the revenues, it's been that way for a couple months, right? That the variance has been just the timing of things. Are they different? Is it the same things that are kind of?
Basically, it's mainly our revenues or taxes.
Yeah.
State aid is always the same. So we're dealing with revenue sources of taxes. So it's a timing of when the counties pay us,
Right.
and then the amount I'm budgeting. So for each month. So that's why I say it's a timing. And the other thing of that is it's tuitions, like our tuitions are done on a semester.
Yeah.
So receiving, I bill it in December, but some districts decide that they're not going to approve it until January and February. So last year, the previous year, you know, I may plan that they're going to come in and pay it in January, but it might catch February, things like that. So.
And the year-to-date's within $1,000, so that's
Yeah,
nice.
so year-to-date. Monthly is more of a.
Worked its way out.
Yeah, monthly is more of the variance, but at the end is total revenue at the end. It should, got it. Be fairly close.
Yeah.
It's a
So I don't.
darn nice chart you have there.
It is.
All right. Is there any other questions about the financial reports? Kim? No? Okay, good. Looking at you. We have nobody here for public forums. We're going to cruise right through that. Consent agenda. Board members, do you have things that you want to talk about from the consent agenda? Or Lindsay, is there things of note that you think you ought to be aware of?
Not really.
Bills, mainly activity is, you can see a lot of officials. That was the main thing there. The other thing is payroll items, sped tuition, and open enrollment tuitions were paid. And those were those were the only things that I wanted to draw attention to. Other than that, I did add a resignation today. If you hadn't looked at it, I'm going to say about 2 o'clock maybe I put it in there.
So it should be at the top.
I knew about it on Friday. I just didn't know if it was supposed to be taken action or not, so I didn't want to put it on there if no wait. And then I had the word today about 2 o'clock, so it was supposed to be on.
No.
Okay. So that is different. So other than that, I don't have any more.
All right.
Move to approve the consent agenda.
Thank you, Tyler.
Second.
Oh, Deb's on fire tonight. Thank you, Deb. Nailed, he snuck that one in. All right. Everyone in favor of the consent agenda?
Aye.
Aye.
All right. It stands approved. Thank you all. I'm going to move on to the very end here, which is the calendar item. Sorry, one thing I asked Lindsay to talk about work session with the AAA at this point, so sorry about that, Lindsay.
No, that's fine. It's a good time to do it. You want me to go ahead?
Yeah, let's get that one in there.
If we're looking at dates in February that they're not available, the 12th, the 21st, the 19th, the 25th, 27th are dates that they're not available. You guys got any dates you want to throw in there?
Can you say those one more time?
I will. The 12th,
Okay.
the 19th,
Thank you.
21st, 22nd, 25th, and 27th.
So they're available on the
Till Valentine's Day?
26th.
Tuesdays
No.
are good, yeah.
What's
I
that?
guess I was just thinking activities, but we're all pretty
So
good.
they're available on the 26th?
Looks like it.
Yeah.
26 works for me.
Works for me.
Looks like the 26th. Are we got it? Going once, going twice. It's 26th. What time? Oops. Go ahead.
Y'all want to do a little earlier?
Would be
What do you
great.
mean by earlier?
4-ish? Some of our works? No. That looks like a no. Strong no on that one.
I'm just,
I have to work.
yeah.
That's all.
What would be the earliest you could,
Oh, yeah.
Oh, 5. Like,
Five.
I'd say 5. I can do it.
does 5 work for you, John?
It does.
You want to try these 5 to 6? How long did they say how long they needed?
About an hour and a half,
All
probably.
right. Yeah. So it's cheaper 5 to 6:30?
5 to 6:30. Okay, I'll pass that on. Thank you for your cooperation there.
Oh, no.
That's for the good calendar map to identify that hole. That's great. And the other
February
thing.
19th, and I was just asking Tyler about the city hall, or the city council, I'm sorry, meeting is the 19th, you said?
At 6:30?
6:30.
Yep, if you want to take in the whole city council starts at 6, but they think this topic will be 6:30.
Okay.
And again, it's, I think, more encouraging the developers are there,
Yeah.
the school board would like to see the revenue and work collaboratively with the city on the project.
Tyler, do you think more of us being there would be a bigger show of support, or?
Oh, I don't think we need to.
Okay.
Try not to have a
overwhelm
form.
them. Oh,
That's
so
always a
2.
good idea.
Yeah,
Okay,
thank you.
No, I just think it's good though, and I think the more that we collaborate, so much the better.
out of town that night.
I'm going to try to make it, so I would be one if anybody else wants.
I'm not a board member, but I'll try to make it also.
Tyler. And then, yeah, then the March 11th and April 8th board meetings. I think that's it.
Move to adjourn.
Second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
All right, we are.
You had, didn't you have something at the end, or is that just always there?
No, you were adjourned, and then we do need to talk for a few minutes, right, about executive session for negotiation strategy, which I will turn this off. Sorry, and then.
Oh, she right?